F. We're going to go into the hammer right now, talk a little bit more about the bolt as well, and that'll pretty much wrap up the J2 from here on out. So what do we got for this last video? We have our Easter bunny here to help out. It's not even close to Easter. I'm not sure why he's helping, but he does.
Here comes Peter Cottontail.
He does have some special abilities. But I gotta tell you, he is annoying. So, Pete, yeah, it's time for him to go. So, we do know that the marker has air in it at this point. And again, well, the first thing that we're gonna wanna do when we do some teching is to de-gas the marker and make sure that there's no paint in the gun. He just said Happy Easter. Anyway, so, pagan symbol of fertility. We're gonna take that down and degas that and take the tank off, and we're going to double check to make sure that there's no paint in the marker, and obviously with a swab check there's going to be no paint in there. I'm going to double check. You can double check. We're clean. Wear goggles while you're working on your marker. They're ASTM certified, and you know you're going to be safe that way. But we've got a degassed marker, no paint, we know we're safe. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go into the hammer. For whatever reason, we're going to clean it up on a day-to-day basis, or after a week or whatever. I've gone into the valve already, but mostly you don't need to go into that valve to do basic maintenance. So after a day of play, you got some goob in your gun or around your gun, wipe it down, nice cloth towel, and I've talked about this, and have a spray bottle with a little bit of go-go juice in there. Clean everything up, but in case you wanted to lubricate your hammer and do that sort of thing, we'll do that now. So, macro line comes off. Okay, we're going to take the ASA off. That's for a completely different video. Barrel comes off here. This one's leaving the sizer in place, but that's fine. Actually, let me show you this too. This is old sizer, but the new sizers are just simply a little bit longer. If you do have these left in place, you simply drop a 1/8 inch in down through both, and then very gently give it a little turn, and that'll take your sizer off for you. CCM has excellent barrels. Their sizers are a little bit longer now. This is, again, a little bit older. So you're like a 3-inch control bore or something, and it steps up to a 695. I've never had any trouble with them. I tend to shoot deadly winds. That's just because what I prefer. But from the factory, you can get a match barrel system, cool stuff, and you'll never need to replace it. It comes with a pile of sizers, and they're always, paint's been shrinking, so they're always making sizers to keep up with that. And you always call the factory and say, "Hey, Mel, hook a brother up. I need some smaller sizes. My paint's too big. My paint's too small." That's what I mean to say. Whatever I'm saying. Grip frame comes off very simply. Boom. It gets set aside. Bolt's been set aside. We're going to turn that at a 90-degree angle and turn it to the side there. We'll take these 2 screws off, although it is unnecessary for what we're doing right now, but just to be clean, we'll take those 2 screws off. Okay. And then the next thing we're going to do is grab a 5/32. Turn this. Okay, take that out. That allows that front block to slide forward, all right? And the whole front end then comes out the gun. Now, I've taken apart this valve in a separate video, and I've taken apart the regulator in a separate video, so I'm going to ignore that for now. We're assuming that you're just going to work on the hammer. So if you inspect this, everything's working right and smooth and clean, wipe it down, I'd leave that alone, I would leave that alone. Not going to mess with that. I might polish up, the rods, but all you have to do is take this back block off, polish the rods up, and put it back together. There's no reason really to get in here unless you've got issues. There's no reason to get in here. These are closed systems for the most part. Again, there is you can get something down in here. If you had paint in here, then take it apart. But if not, don't fix what ain't broke-ed. That's a technical term. Don't use that everywhere. People will want to know if you're an engineer if you start using that a lot. Next step is to grab a 3/32 Allen key and go in through the back. You see how this on the J square, oh, that's your D10. We've talked about that. A couple of it always wants to fall out at some point. This is a closed system, and so, wipe it down. But you now don't take anything out the back. You used to take the hammer out the back. Now, if you're adjusting the velocity, you use a 1/8. It goes in, that's going to adjust your velocity. Righty goes up, lefty goes down. It's reverse thread in there, and we'll show you that in a second. The 3/32 then goes in past, it'll go through that IVG, and what it's doing is loosening up the set screw that holds this little wing in place. Now you're going to want to insert this bolt, but that little wing gets held in place by a set screw that I'm right now going to loosen. About 4 turns, that's about 3, just enough to be able to get this wing out of here. So what did I do? I inserted the bolt to push that back. While I pulled up, that comes out, the hammer dumps out, and now this body is empty. What do you do at this point? You grab your swab, add a little bit to it, run it through, clean it up, wipe down the outside, and set it aside. After whatever day of play, you have now broken the marker down to its base components. So we've got the hammer, which I'm wiping down right now, and if it's scuffed or whatever that, give it a polish. Do whatever you gotta do there. Wipe this down, make sure there's nothing on that, and that's your hammer. This is a very simple marker. Now, to show you a little bit more of what you're doing when you adjust the velocity, your spring sits in here, and this sits in this position as such, okay? And so when this marker is cocked, this spring is under tension, okay? And when it flies forward, the hammer flies forward, it opens this valve, allowing air out the top, which has been regulated by the regulator and by your tank. Boop, 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 shoot, shoot, I'm mowing faces, paint on your face, right? That's how it works. So this hammer just needs to be polished if it needs it, and it comes from the factory, super shiny, so I don't have to worry about this, and I wouldn't polish it often. Every time you do it, you are taking off a little bit of material, and there's no reason to ruin specs if everything looks shiny. I'm going to add just a little bit of tri-flow, wipe it around. That wasn't a little bit, that was kind of a lot bit, so get rid of the excess on that. But when you adjust the velocity, and you're using that 1/8, this is reverse threaded. So actually let me take this out. And I just did the wrong thing that I told you not to do. It's reverse threaded. So you have to, tighten it, righty-tighty, no, righty-loosey in this case. It's coming out. So this comes out. It's got an O-ring on it. And then inside of here is that grub screw that retains this wing right here, and it retains it here as such, okay? You never have to take this out unless you accidentally loosen it up too much when you're trying to just disassemble the marker. If you do that, it falls in between the IVG and the front of the bolt face. Doesn't do any damage, you just won't, the gun won't work real well. And so you can just put that back in, okay? So what I do is, give that a tighten down and look down in that hole there and make sure I'm not occluding the hole. Make sure that this drops in smoothly, comes in and out smoothly. So when you reassemble, you don't make a mistake, because if you do have that occluding the hole, it'll drop part of the way in and you're screwed up. So now, this IVG is backwards for what you're used to. The IVG used to run on the inside of the body here, and you would tighten it up to add pressure to the spring from the back. Right now you're doing is you're turning it to the right, which in theory tightens it up, but it doesn't because it's reverse threaded. Reverse threaded, I said. I almost did that again. Every time I take apart this marker, and you'll do it too for a while, you're just so used to turning threads one way that you'll lefty-tighty, Anyway, so that's tightening up now. So you're now lowering the velocity on your gun. Now, when you're reassembling this, you're going to want to put it about 4 turns in. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not rocket science, but you do that will give you a basic basis there. So when you're adjusting your velocity, if you go righty-tighty, it's actually lengthening that screw out, putting pressure on the marker or on the hammer from the front. So that's what you're doing, just wanted to show you there. And that gets dropped back in when you're putting it back together. Never forget the spring. You're not going to do much without a spring. Besides look at a pretty gun. Then you need to line up the hole here this slot in order to get that wing back in. This one wanting to fight me a little bit. I'm always a little bit glad when stuff happens on videos that fights me just a little, just to show you guys that, you know, it happens to everyone. So I'm going to dump that back out and realign. There we go. And then grab this with an Allen key or whatever, and now it's lined up. So now I've got something good. So once it's lined up, grab your bolt again, push it back. It got a little out of line, so I'll fix that. There, hey, look at there. Felt like I can play Spawn Zone. And this wing goes in, the longer piece, down. And it should drop right in there and then set. And take the bolt away and you're good. But do not forget to use your 3/32 through the 1/8 hole and tighten this down. Not to go crazy, just tighten it down. And make sure that that's all happy, shiny rainbows and sunshine, okay? Now, once you have that back in, when we're going to reassemble really quickly, we've now cleaned our hammer, we cleaned out inside the gun. I can't imagine anything else you need to do on a day-to-day basis. We're going to grab this O-ring, drop it in this slot. And I say drop, oh, I didn't say drop it on the ground. Drop it in this slot. Okay, I like it a few times when things make mistakes, but not every time. There you go. And I use my finger to push that down and just make sure that it occludes, you know, is in the breech there. There's a breech detent, technically. Turn that 90 degrees. Slide this all back in. Look a little tricky. There we go. And that all goes back in. Turn the... I'm going to do that upside down to keep that detent in place. Turn the back block in, put the bolt in, and that's basically going to hold it in place until you can get the retention screw in. But you see that still moves, and that's not good. So we grab our last thing for reassembly, which is just this valve retention. Again, a 5/32. Hold everything to the rear. Set it on the table if you need to. And then just snug that up. That should just go in there and snug up easily. And there it is. So that's back together. Now, putting the grip frame back on. You can see how this is like a 10-minute process to break it down on a daily basis if you wanted to. And again, if you didn't get shot in the gun and you weren't diving in the snake or crawling in mud and stuff, I'd wipe down the outside, wipe down the bolt, run a swab through it, and call it a day. That's just the way I roll. That's how I do. That was fighting me, so I'll grab a 1/8" Allen and tighten that up a little bit. There. And this goes on quickly. Boop. Turn that upside down. Again, we work on the marker mostly upside down on a J12. Tighten this down, that down. Put our macro line back together. It's still got a little bit of lubrication from other videos, so I'm good there. And then let's test it to see if it holds air. Tank goes back in, tightens down. We just pump the marker. Holy cow, did I do it right? I think I did. Now, we're going to check the auto trigger in this. So we hold the trigger down, we pump the marker, and as you'll see, it fires at about that spot. You can't adjust that. It's adjusted at the factory, and you do not adjust the auto trigger on this marker. That's just the way it's set up. That's just the way it is. And that's how it works on a Chipley. So you are set. You're back, you're golden. You put the barrel back on, find your hopper, find some paint, find some faces to mow, and you're back in business. So that should do it for the J12. I appreciate you watching all the videos. Keep around. I'm going to show you about some teching, polishing, and things like that later on, but that'll be down the road once I understand the marker a little bit better. This just gets you rocking and rolling for your day-to-day maintenance. So have a good time, guys. Be safe, have fun, play pump. Peace.